She tore the Italian Mafia boss's suit after he refused to pay $5 million for champagne. "That's a €50,000 suit," he said, his voice dangerously quiet as champagne dripped from his perfectly tailored brioni onto Italian marble. "Consider it a down payment on the $5 million you owe," I replied, empty bottle still clutched in my trembling hand, heart hammering against my ribs. I expected security to appear, to be dragged from the building, possibly arrested. Instead, Dante Ricci, the most feared businessman in Milan, did the unthinkable. He laughed. Have you ever had that moment where your life flashes before your eyes? Where you realize you've just done something so monumentally stupid that there's no coming back from it? That was me, standing in a wine cellar beneath Milan's most exclusive hotel, having just drenched Italy's most dangerous hotelier in €5,000 champagne. The same champagne he was refusing to pay for. The same champagne that was about to cost 200 people their livelihoods. If you're wondering how a sensible woman like me ended up in this situation, well, I've been asking myself the same question since I boarded the plane to Milan 3 days ago. My name is Vivienne Rivera, and until last week, I was just an executive assistant at Beaumont Vineyards, a 200-year-old champagne house in France. Now I'm apparently the woman who dares to stand up to Dante Ricci. God help me. If you're enjoying this story of how I completely lost my mind confronting one of Europe's most powerful men, hit that like button and subscribe to Serafina's stories for more tales of ordinary people in extraordinary situations. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this ends. The champagne fizzed in crystal flutes beneath the chandeliers of Lucille, Milan's most exclusive rooftop restaurant. I adjusted the hem of my borrowed Valentino dress, feeling like an imposter among the glittering elite. The midnight skyline stretched before me, the city's lights competing with the stars scattered across the Italian sky. Another glass, Ms. Rivera? The waiter appeared at my elbow, bottle poised. No, thank you. I smiled tightly, conscious of the weight of eyes on me from across the terrace. Dante Ricci hadn't stopped watching me since I'd arrived. The infamous hotelier sat surrounded by his entourage, his dark gaze cutting through the crowd with laser precision. I pretended not to notice, though every nerve ending in my body had been on high alert since I'd stepped onto his property. I was here for one reason only, to collect the €5 million he owed my employer, Madame Beaumont, for the rare vintage champagne his hotel had ordered for their centennial celebration. 3 months of ignored invoices had led to this moment. Me, Vivienne Rivera, executive assistant turned reluctant debt collector, sent because I was persuasive and wouldn't be intimidated. Madame had been wrong about the latter. I took a steadying breath and crossed the terrace, the silk of my dress whispering against my skin. Conversations hushed as I passed, curious eyes following my trajectory toward the most powerful man in the room. Mr. Ricci. I stopped before his table, professional smile firmly in place. Might I have a moment of your time? Up close, he was even more imposing than his photographs suggested. Mid-40s, with salt and pepper hair cropped close at the sides, olive skin, and eyes like polished obsidian. A perfectly tailored brioni suit clung to broad shoulders, the subtle power of wealth emanating from him like a force field. Ms. Rivera. My name in his mouth sounded like something exotic. I've been expecting you. Of course he had. Nothing happened in Dante Ricci's world without his knowledge. Then you know why I'm here. I kept my voice low, conscious of the listening ears around us. He gestured to the empty chair beside him. Join me. It wasn't a request. I sat, spine rigid, the proximity to him making my skin prickle with awareness. Your employer is persistent, he said, swirling amber liquid in a crystal tumbler. 3 emails, 6 calls, and now a personal envoy. Impressive. €5 million is worth being persistent about, Mr. Ricci. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Is it? The casual dismissal in his tone made something snap inside me. 3 months of Madame's increasing panic, of suppliers threatening to cut us off, of my own salary being delayed, all because this man couldn't be bothered to honor his commitments. The champagne was delivered as contracted, I said, leaning forward slightly. 60 cases of Beaumont Lumiere 1926. The rarest vintage in Madame's collection, bottled during the year your hotel was founded. A perfect symbolic match for your centennial, as you specifically requested. And yet, he replied, setting down his glass, the celebration was anything but perfect. I frowned. I don't understand. The champagne was corked. Every bottle we opened had gone bad. Quite embarrassing when you've promised your guests the experience of a lifetime. My stomach dropped. That's impossible. Each bottle was inspected before shipping. Nevertheless. He shrugged one impeccable shoulder. I don't pay for inferior products, Ms. Rivera. The dismissal in his tone made my cheeks burn. I'd heard the rumors about Dante Ricci, his ruthlessness in business, his refusal to compromise, his legendary pride. But I also knew Madame Beaumont's reputation for excellence. Something wasn't adding up. Did you have the bottles independently tested? I asked. I don't need to test what I can taste. His eyes narrowed. Are you questioning my palate? I'm questioning the convenient timing of this complaint, Mr. Ricci. 3 months after delivery, after numerous attempts to collect payment. The atmosphere around the table chilled by several degrees. His entourage shifted uncomfortably, but Dante's expression remained impassive. Careful, Ms. Rivera. You're implying I'm being dishonest. I'm implying that Madame Beaumont's champagne house has been in business for 2 centuries without a single quality complaint of this magnitude. And now, suddenly, an entire shipment is supposedly ruined? It seems convenient. He leaned forward, close enough that I could smell his cologne, sandalwood and something darker, more primal. Perhaps your employer's standards have slipped in recent years. I hear the vineyard is struggling financially. The truth of his words stung. Madame had been fighting to keep the business afloat since her husband's death. This contract with Ricci Hotels had been meant to save us. The $5 million you owe would certainly help with that, I said quietly. I don't owe anything for undrinkable champagne. He signaled to a waiter. We're finished here. Panic fluttered in my chest. I couldn't return to France empty-handed. Madame had been explicit, without this payment, the vineyard would be forced to sell to the conglomerate that had been circling like vultures. Mr. Ricci, please. If you could just. I said we're finished. He stood, buttoning his jacket with an elegant flick of his wrist. My assistant will see you out. Something inside me snapped. 3 generations of Rivera women had worked for the Beaumont family. I'd grown up among those vines, learned to read by studying bottle labels, fallen asleep to Madame's stories of harvests past. I wouldn't, let it end like this. I grabbed his sleeve as he turned away, the fine wool of his suit rough against my fingers. Show me, I demanded. He looked down at my hand, then up at my face, surprise flickering across his features. Excuse me? Show me these supposedly ruined bottles. If they're truly corked, I'll leave without another word. But I want to see for myself. The terrace had gone silent, all eyes on our confrontation. Dante's jaw tightened, a muscle ticking beneath the smooth skin. You doubt me in my own establishment? I believe in Madame Beaumont's champagne, I replied, not backing down despite the dangerous glint in his eye. And I believe you're using this as an excuse to avoid payment. His entourage gasped. No one spoke to Dante Ricci this way, certainly not a vineyard employee in a borrowed dress. For a long moment, he simply stared at me, something unreadable shifting in his expression. Then, to my surprise, he nodded once. "Very well, Ms. Rivera. Follow me." He led me through the restaurant, down a private elevator, and through the opulent lobby of his flagship hotel. Staff scattered before him like startled birds, their curious glances following us as we descended further into the building. The wine cellar was a cathedral of bottles, temperature-controlled and dimly lit. Dante dismissed the sommelier with a flick of his wrist and led me to a separate room where cases of Beaumont Lumiere were stacked against one wall. "Here." He pulled a bottle from an open case, uncorked it with practiced ease, and poured a small amount into a glass. "Taste for yourself." I took the glass, swirled the pale gold liquid, and inhaled. The familiar notes of Madame's signature champagne greeted me: apple blossom, brioche, a hint of honey. Nothing suggested cork taint. I sipped, letting the bubbles dance across my tongue. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. "There's nothing wrong with this champagne," I said, setting down the glass. "Perhaps not this bottle." He reached for another, uncorking it with the same fluid motion. I tasted 5 bottles in succession. Each was flawless. "Mr. Ricci," I said finally, anger building inside me. "You've been lying. This champagne is exactly as promised, exceptional quality from an exceptional vintage." He watched me with those impenetrable dark eyes, giving nothing away. "The bottles we opened at the Centennial were different." "I don't believe you." My voice shook with fury. "You're trying to bankrupt Madame Beaumont." "Why? What could you possibly gain?" "The vineyard," he said simply. "Once she's forced to sell, I plan to acquire it." The casual cruelty of his admission stole my breath. "You would destroy a 200-year-old legacy for what? Another trophy in your collection?" "Business is business, Ms. Rivera." "This isn't business. This is theft." I stepped closer, trembling with rage. "That vineyard isn't just land and grapes. It's people's lives, their history, their future. Sentimentality is expensive in this world." He straightened his tie, dismissing my outrage. "Your madam should have managed her finances better." Something inside me snapped. Before I could think better of it, I grabbed the open bottle of champagne and appended it over his pristine suit. The golden liquid soaked through the fine wool, dripping onto Italian leather shoes worth more than my monthly salary. Dante froze, shock registering on his face for the first time since I'd met him. "That's a €50,000 suit," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Consider it a down payment on the $5 million you owe," I replied, heart hammering against my ribs. I expected security to appear, to be dragged from the building, possibly arrested. Instead, Dante Ricci did the unthinkable. He laughed. A rich, genuine sound that transformed his severe features into something almost approachable. "No one has dared speak to me like this in years," he said, looking at me with new interest. "Let alone ruin my favorite brioni." "Someone should have," I retorted, still vibrating with anger. "You're used to people cowering before you, giving you whatever you want. It's made you cruel." He studied me for a long moment, champagne dripping from his sleeve. "Perhaps," he conceded, surprising me again. "But it's also made me recognize value when I see it. The only value you should be recognizing is the €5 million you owe Madame Beaumont. What if I offered something more?" He stepped closer, the scent of expensive champagne mingling with his cologne. "A partnership instead of a payment. My resources, her legacy. Together." I blinked, caught off guard by the sudden shift. "What are you suggesting?" "Dinner. Tomorrow night. You, me, and a business proposal that could save your precious vineyard without sacrificing its soul. I should have refused immediately. This man had just admitted to trying to bankrupt my employer. And yet, the payment first, I said firmly. Transfer the full amount tonight, and I'll consider your dinner invitation. A smile played at the corners of his mouth. You drive a hard bargain, Ms. Rivera. I've learned from watching predators like you. Instead of taking offense, he seemed more intrigued. The transfer will be complete before midnight. I look forward to our dinner. As I left the cellar, heart still racing from our confrontation, I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted. I'd come to collect a debt and ended up with something far more complicated, the dangerous interest of Dante Ricci. What I didn't yet understand was whether I'd saved Madame Beaumont's vineyard or simply traded one threat for another, potentially more perilous one. Only time would tell if the price of my pride would be worth paying. If you're enjoying this story of unexpected confrontations and high-stakes negotiations, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Now, let's see what happens next. I spent a sleepless night in my hotel room, pacing the floor and checking my phone every 5 minutes. Would Dante actually transfer the money? Was I insane for agreeing to have dinner with him? What would I tell Madame? At 11:58 p.m., my phone pinged with an email notification. The subject line read simply, "Proof of payment." I opened it with trembling fingers. There it was, confirmation of a wire transfer for exactly €5 million to Beaumont Vineyard's account. He'd actually done it. Relief crashed over me in a wave so powerful I had to sit down. The vineyard was saved, at least temporarily. But what was Dante Ricci's endgame? Men like him didn't just hand over millions without expecting something substantial in return. I called Madame immediately, despite the late hour. Vivienne? Her voice was thick with sleep. What is it? Has something happened? He paid, Madame. All of it. €5 million, transferred to the company account. The silence on the other end lasted so long I thought we'd been disconnected. Madame? Are you there? How? She finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. How did you convince him? I hesitated. I was persuasive. Vivienne. Her tone sharpened. What did you do? Nothing illegal, I assured her quickly. I just challenged his story about the champagne being corked. Made him prove it. And he couldn't, because it wasn't true. He was lying, Madame. He wanted the vineyard to fail so he could buy it. Another long silence. There's something you're not telling me, she said finally. I sighed. He wants to meet for dinner tomorrow night. To discuss a potential partnership. What kind of partnership? I don't know yet. But I agreed to hear him out, after he paid what he owed. Madame Beaumont had been like a second mother to me since my parents died. I could picture her now, sitting up in bed, her silver hair loose around her shoulders, her shrewd mind calculating all the angles. Be careful, Vivienne, she said at last. Men like Dante Ricci don't change their minds easily. If he's suddenly interested in a partnership rather than a takeover, he has a reason. I know. I'll be careful. And Vivienne? Thank you. Whatever you did, thank you. I hung up, emotion tightening my throat. The vineyard wasn't just a job to me, it was home, family, heritage. I would do whatever it took to protect it, even if that meant having dinner with the devil himself. The next evening found me back at Ricci's hotel, but this time I wasn't led to the rooftop restaurant. Instead, the concierge escorted me to a private elevator that required a key card to operate. "Mr. Ricci is waiting for you in his residence," the man explained, handing me the card. "Top floor." Of course, Dante lived in his own hotel. Why maintain one home when you could have an entire empire at your disposal? I dressed more carefully tonight, a midnight blue dress that was actually mine, not borrowed. Simple, elegant, and most importantly, armor. I needed every advantage I could get. The elevator opened directly into a foyer that looked like it had been transported from a Renaissance palace. Marble floors, soaring ceilings, and artwork that belonged in museums rather than a private residence. "Ms. Rivera." Dante appeared from an adjoining room, dressed in another impeccable suit, charcoal gray this time. Punctual. "I appreciate that. I'm not here to impress you, Mr. Ricci. And yet you do." His gaze traveled over me, not leeringly, but with the same appreciation he might give to one of his priceless paintings. "Please, come in. Dinner is ready." He led me through to a terrace that offered an even more spectacular view than the restaurant below. A table had been set for two, candles flickering in the gentle evening breeze. The Milan skyline stretched before us, bathed in the golden light of sunset. "No witnesses tonight?" I asked, noting the absence of staff. "I thought we might speak more freely without an audience." He pulled out my chair. "Unless you're concerned for your safety?" I sat down, refusing to show any unease. "If you wanted to harm me, you wouldn't have transferred €5 million first." He smiled, taking the seat across from me. "Logical. I like that." A bottle of champagne sat chilling in an ice bucket beside the table. I recognized the label immediately, Beaumont Lumiere 1926. More of our supposedly corked champagne? I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. "A peace offering." He lifted the bottle, examining the label. "And a reminder of what brought us together. Your attempted theft brought us together, Mr. Ricci. Not the champagne." He uncorked the bottle with practiced ease, the soft pop echoing in the evening air. "Direct as always. Another quality I admire. You don't know me well enough to admire anything about me. On the contrary." He poured the champagne, the pale gold liquid catching the candlelight. "I know quite a bit about you, Vivienne Rivera. 32 years old. Born in a small village near Reims. Parents killed in a car accident when you were 19. Taken in by Elise Beaumont, who paid for your education at École de Commerce in Paris. Loyal to a fault. Stubborn. Principled." A chill ran down my spine. "You've been investigating me." "I investigate everyone who interests me." He handed me a glass. "And you, Ms. Rivera, are very interesting indeed." I accepted the champagne but didn't drink. "Why am I here, Mr. Ricci? What kind of partnership could possibly exist between Beaumont Vineyards and a man who tried to destroy it?" "A mutually beneficial one." He sipped his champagne, his dark eyes never leaving mine. "Your vineyard needs capital investment and expanded distribution. I need authenticity and heritage for my luxury brand portfolio." "So you tried to bankrupt us first?" "That's an unusual negotiation tactic. I prefer to acquire distressed assets. Less expensive that way." He said it so matter-of-factly, as if discussing the weather rather than the calculated destruction of people's livelihoods. "And now?" "Now I've reassessed. Sometimes the value of an asset isn't in its price, but in its spirit." His gaze intensified. "Madame Beaumont has created something special, but she's aging. The industry is changing. Without significant investment and modernization, the vineyard will fail within 5 years, regardless of my actions. The worst part was that he wasn't wrong. Madame had been fighting a losing battle against larger conglomerates with deeper pockets and more aggressive marketing. The 5 million would buy us time, but not a future. What exactly are you proposing? I asked, finally taking a sip of the champagne. It was, of course, perfect. A 51% stake in Beaumont Vineyards. In exchange, I'll inject 20 million euros in capital improvements, expand distribution through my hotel network globally, and guarantee that production remains in the original facilities with the current staff. 51% means control. It does. He nodded. But I'm willing to include contractual limitations on that control. Madame Beaumont remains as master vintner for as long as she wishes. No changes to the production process without her approval. The Beaumont name and legacy preserved. It was not what I'd expected. Not a hostile takeover, but something that almost resembled respect. Why the change of heart? I asked, studying him over the rim of my glass. Yesterday you were trying to destroy us. Today you're offering salvation with strings attached. Dante leaned back in his chair, considering me. Do you know what my first job was, Ms. Rivera? The abrupt change of subject caught me off guard. I assume it involved crushing the dreams of small business owners. He laughed, that same rich sound from the wine cellar. I was a dishwasher. In a small restaurant in Naples. My father was a dock worker, my mother cleaned houses for the wealthy. We had nothing. This didn't align with the image of Dante Ricci, born into privilege, that I'd constructed in my mind. Everything I have, he continued, I built myself. Through work, determination, and yes, sometimes ruthlessness. I respect those qualities in others. And you saw them in me when I dumped champagne on your 50,000 euro suit? Precisely. He raised his glass in a small toast. You reminded me of something I'd forgotten, that true value isn't always found in balance sheets and profit margins. Our dinner arrived then, delivered by a single server who appeared and disappeared with such discretion he might have been a ghost. The food was exquisite, each course paired with a different Beaumont vintage. Throughout the meal, Dante outlined his vision for the vineyard's future: new sustainable farming practices, a visitor center, expanded limited edition offerings. Despite myself, I was impressed. He'd clearly done his research, not just on me, but on the challenges facing small champagne houses in an increasingly consolidated industry. You've thought this through, I admitted as dessert was served, a delicate panna cotta with fresh berries. I don't enter partnerships lightly. His eyes held mine. In business or otherwise. The implication hung in the air between us. I broke eye contact first, focusing on my dessert. Madame Beaumont would need to approve any deal, I said, steering the conversation back to safer ground. And our lawyers would need to review everything. Of course. I wouldn't expect anything less. He refilled our champagne glasses. But you haven't told me what you think, Vivienne. The use of my first name sent an unexpected shiver through me. My opinion isn't relevant. I'm just an employee. We both know that's not true. He set down his glass. Madame Beaumont trusts your judgment implicitly. She sent you here, alone, to handle a 5 million euro negotiation. Your recommendation will carry significant weight. He wasn't wrong. Madame had always treated me more like a daughter than an employee. My opinion would matter to her. I chose my words carefully. I think your offer deserves consideration. But I also think a man who would deliberately try to bankrupt a 200-year-old vineyard for financial gain might not be the most trustworthy partner. Fair. He nodded, accepting the criticism. And if I could prove my trustworthiness? How would you do that? By giving you time. The $5 million I've already transferred buys the vineyard breathing room. Take 6 months to consider my offer. In the meantime, I'll demonstrate good faith by featuring Beaumont champagnes exclusively throughout my hotel chain at full market price. It was a generous proposal, too generous, which made me suspicious. Why would you do that? What's your angle? Dante leaned forward, his expression more serious than I'd seen it yet. Perhaps I'm tired of being the villain in every story. Perhaps meeting someone who wasn't afraid to stand up to me made me reconsider my approach. Or perhaps what? Perhaps I simply want to spend more time with the woman who had the courage to ruin my favorite suit. I felt heat rise to my cheeks and hated myself for it. This man had tried to destroy everything I cared about, and here I was, blushing at his attention like some naive schoolgirl. That's not going to happen, I said firmly. Which part? The business partnership or the personal one? Both. Either. I don't mix business with pleasure. Neither do I, typically. He studied me with those penetrating dark eyes. But exceptions can be made for exceptional circumstances. I stood up, needing to put some distance between us. Walking to the edge of the terrace, I gazed out at the Milan skyline, lights twinkling like earthbound stars. The night air was cool against my heated skin. You know what I can't figure out? I said without turning around. Why someone like you would be interested in a small champagne house in the first place. You own hotels, restaurants, real estate across Europe. Beaumont Vineyards is a rounding error in your portfolio. I heard him rise, felt his presence behind me before he spoke. Some acquisitions aren't about the balance sheet. His voice was closer than I expected. Some are about legacy. I turned to face him, finding him just a step away. Legacy? My grandfather was a vineyard worker in France before the war. He used to tell stories about the great champagne houses, the artistry, the tradition. He dreamed of owning even a small plot of that hallowed ground. Dante's expression softened with the memory. He died working someone else's land. For the first time, I glimpsed something genuine beneath the polished exterior, a flash of the boy who had once listened to his grandfather's dreams. So this is about fulfilling his ambition? I asked, skepticism still coloring my tone. Partly. He shrugged, the gesture surprisingly human. It's also good business. Luxury hotels and historic champagne houses are natural partners. And the personal interest in me? His lips curved into that half-smile that somehow transformed his entire face. That was unexpected. A complication. I'm not interested in being anyone's complication, Mr. Ricci. Dante, he corrected. After sharing a bottle of 26 Lumiere, I think we can dispense with formalities. Fine. Dante. His name felt strange on my tongue. Intimate. I should go. It's late, and I have an early flight tomorrow. Stay. The word hung between us, laden with meaning. Not just tonight. Stay in Milan. Give me the chance to prove my intentions, business and otherwise. I can't. Madam is expecting me back. Call her. Explain that you're conducting due diligence on a potential partnership. I shook my head. This is crazy. Yesterday you were my enemy. And today? He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne again, that intoxicating blend of sandalwood and something uniquely him. Today you're... I don't know what you are. His hand rose, hesitated, then gently tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. The simple contact sent electricity racing across my skin. "Stay and find out," he murmured. I should have stepped back. Should have maintained professional distance. Instead, I found myself swaying slightly toward him, drawn by some magnetic pull I couldn't explain. The moment stretched between us, taut with possibility. Then my phone rang, shattering the spell. Madame's ringtone. I stepped back, fumbling for my clutch. "I need to take this." Dante nodded, moving away to give me privacy. I answered with slightly unsteady hands. "Madam? Is everything all right?" "Vivienne." Her voice was tight with tension. "You need to come home immediately." "What's happened?" "Montclair Luxury Group has made a hostile offer for the vineyard. They're approaching our shareholders directly." Montclair. One of the largest luxury conglomerates in Europe, known for acquiring historic brands and gutting their operations for maximum profit. How? The payment from Ricci Hotels stabilized our finances. Apparently, someone leaked information about our cash flow problems. They're offering a premium to small shareholders, claiming our recovery is temporary. My eyes shot to Dante, who was watching me with concern from across the terrace. Had this been his plan all along? Distract me with dinner and flirtation while his real strategy unfolded? "I'll be on the first flight tomorrow," I promised Madame, ending the call. "Problem?" Dante asked, approaching cautiously. "You could say that." I slipped my phone back into my clutch. Montclair Luxury Group has made a hostile offer for Beaumont Vineyards. I watched his face carefully, looking for any sign of prior knowledge, any flicker of satisfaction. Instead, I saw something that looked remarkably like genuine anger. "Bastards," he muttered. "They've been trying to build a champagne portfolio for years. No respect for tradition or quality. You didn't know about this?" I asked directly. His eyes widened slightly. "You think I'm involved? That this was some elaborate distraction?" It crossed my mind. "Vivienne." He stepped closer, his expression intense. "I may be ruthless in business, but I don't lie. Not about this. Not to you." Something in his voice made me want to believe him. But I'd been fooled before, and the stakes were too high. "I need to go," I said, gathering my things. "Thank you for dinner, but let me help." He cut me off, already pulling out his phone. "I can have my legal team review their offer, find weaknesses. My jet can have you in Reims by morning." "Why would you do that?" "Because Montclair would destroy everything that makes Beaumont special." His voice hardened. "They'd keep the name, move production to some factory, and sell overpriced mediocrity to people who don't know better." It was exactly what Madame and I feared. "And that matters to you?" I asked, still suspicious. "Yes." The simplicity of his answer caught me off guard. "It matters." Our eyes locked, and in that moment, I made a decision that would change everything. "Okay," I said. "Help me stop them." What followed was a whirlwind. Dante made calls, mobilizing his legal team despite the late hour. His assistant appeared with printouts of Montclair's recent acquisitions and their subsequent operational changes, evidence of their slash-and-burn approach to historic brands. By midnight, we had the beginnings of a counter-strategy. By 2 a.m., I was boarding his private jet, armed with legal documents and a plan to protect the vineyard from Montclair's predatory tactics. Dante walked me to the plane, our breath fogging in the cool night air of the private airfield. "My team will be at your disposal," he said. "Whatever you need." "Why are you really doing this?" I asked, pausing at the foot of the stairs. And don't give me the line about your grandfather again. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Perhaps I'm trying to prove something. To whom? To you. His gaze held mine. That I can be more than the villain you first met. The honesty in his voice caught me off guard. Dante. Go, he interrupted gently. Save your vineyard. We'll continue this conversation when Montclair has been dealt with. I hesitated, then impulsively rose on tiptoes and pressed a quick kiss to his cheek. Thank you. His expression softened. For what it's worth, Vivienne, pouring champagne on me was the best thing anyone's done for me in years. I laughed despite myself. I'll remember that if you ever step out of line again. I'm counting on it. As the jet lifted into the night sky, I gazed down at the twinkling lights of Milan falling away beneath me. 24 hours ago, I'd seen Dante Ricci as the enemy, a predator circling Madame Beaumont's vulnerable vineyard. Now I was flying home on his private jet, with his resources at my disposal to fight an even greater threat. Life has a way of appending our expectations, of forcing us to reconsider our judgments. I'd come to Milan to confront a villain and found, what? An ally? A potential partner? Something more complicated than either? The battle for Beaumont Vineyards was just beginning, but somehow I knew that whatever happened with Montclair, my path would cross with Dante Ricci's again. The man who had tried to destroy us, then offered salvation. The man whose expensive suit I'd ruined in a moment of righteous fury. The man who had looked at me like I was worth more than all his wealth combined. Sometimes standing your ground means risking everything. Sometimes pouring champagne on a powerful man's suit can change the course of your life. And sometimes, just sometimes, the people we think are our enemies turn out to be the ones who fight beside us when it matters most. As for what would happen between Dante and me when this was all over? That was a story still waiting to be written. But for the first time in years, I found myself looking forward to the next chapter. If you enjoyed this story of unexpected alliances and standing up for what matters, hit that like button and subscribe to Serafina's Stories for more tales that will inspire, entertain, and remind you that sometimes the greatest courage is found in the most unlikely moments. Share in the comments if you've ever had to stand up to someone powerful to protect what you love. I'd love to hear your stories of bravery and determination. Until next time, remember, sometimes the most valuable thing we possess isn't measured in millions, but in the courage to fight for what we believe in, no matter the cost.